What's up, everyone? Fritz here again with another episode of Sneakerhead and Vision, and it's definitely been a minute. I've had a lot of things in my life that have kind of just not gone my way lately, not regarding business, but just with my family, my girlfriend. There's just been a lot that's kind of been happening. So for a month or two, I had to scale back on, a few things within my business, and I'm obviously not going to scale back on the business part of it because I need to make my money, right? But I definitely scaled back on the content creation and just how many videos I'm putting out. If you followed me for a while, a year or so ago, I was up until about the end of last year, I'd posting sometimes 2 videos a week. And I really want to get back to that. I know that people honestly need this content now more than ever, just because of the general market conditions and how, botting sneakers has gone lately for people. So just heads up, I should be back. I know I mentioned this last time, but I will have some episodes that are live cops that are from like a month ago. I will put those up, and I should have a good amount of these videos just kind of ready to roll. I should have at least a video a week over the next 2 or 3 weeks, and then hoping to get back to that 2 per week. So I'll get into today's episode now, but just wanted to kind of put that out there. Good to see you all again, and hopefully this is useful. All right, so the topic that I'm going to be addressing today is just something that I've kind of noticed. Like I said, just because I haven't been posting content doesn't mean I haven't been botting and, doing my thing as usual. But the topic that I'm going to cover today is just a recent development based on what I've seen and just the success that I have had lately on 2 sites. So that's going to be Footsites, so that'd be Foot Locker Champs, Kids Foot Locker, and FNL and JD. So that's going to be the topic of today's video. And this is definitely good news if this information holds true. So, long story short, before I break this down some more, it seems like Footsites and Finishline, from my experience over the past month or 2 with Finishline and over the past 4 or 5 months with Footsites, both of them seem to be a viable option, again, to actually run sneaker spots. Now, I'm going to back up for a second, and I'm going to just give a full picture of the situation with both of those sites to give you all some context so that this makes sense. If you've gotten into this space over the past year, this might not be that big of a news flash to you, but if you've been doing this for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, this is definitely a big benefit to us botting. So I'm going to break down just kind of what had happened to lead us to right now and what I feel, again, from my personal and anecdotal experience, is happening. All right, now the full picture. So about a year and a half ago now, Footsites made a substantial change in just the entire way that they were going about releasing the stock that they had to the public. Also, over the course of that time, when I started botting Finishline and JD Sports 4 or 5 years ago, and even up until about 2 years ago, give or take, right? I might be off by a couple months or a quarter, but these are general time frames. They both made it so, well, Finishline you couldn't even check out, right? I know some of y'all have watched my videos and live cops over the past, 2 years. And some of the times, right, you see me hit 100, 150 pairs on Finishline and get 5 to 10 pairs shipped, right? So Finishline essentially made it impossible to hit on their site. And I'm going to dig into the Footsite situation in a second. But for all intents and purposes, to surmise this little clip here, right, they both essentially made it so that you couldn't really hit online. And then I'm going to go into the details of how that happened and how that's kind of seeming to be resolved as of now. Okay, so going into this in a little more depth, all right, I'll start off with Footsites and Flex. There was a big drop, like I said, about a year and a half ago, and that would have been the holiday season of 2021, right? Obviously, during that time of year, there are big drops that happen, right? That's usually the biggest stock. They've got some of the best colorways, whatever you want to think of it. But there was a big Jordan drop coming up at that time. I believe it was an 11. Could be wrong about that, but I think it was a Jordan 11 cherries, maybe. I could be wrong on that, but whatever. It was a big Jordan. Now, going into that, right, I was running, the old Footsite bots, Kodai, Wrath, just different bots that still did really well. And they really changed up what they were doing because at that time there was a mass hysteria by people that, they need to fix the bots, do something. So they moved to this Flex raffle system, all right? If you remember this right, basically what they did was they pretty much removed all stock from online, first come, first serve, where bots are doing their damage, all right? And they moved it to this new system where, you go enter like you were doing the old in-store, and you could pick in-store, you could you could pick ship to me. Okay, if you all remember, there were a ton of bots at the time in early 2022 when the market kind of reacted to this, that came on, and essentially a bunch of bots had implemented that. I remember Noble had one that I was running. Whatbot had it. Who else had it at the time? I mean, Osiris had it. There's more, right? But long story short, a bunch of bots tried to adjust. I did have a solid amount of success, right? I went through a period of buying a bunch of Flex accounts. A lot of people did that as well. That was the whole thing. Now, the issue with that for botting, right? Obviously, you could run the Flex raffle system, but that's not botting per se. It's more raffle botting, which is a different animal, right? You need accounts. You need to build those accounts up with points, and there's just more to that, right? I did a video, I believe, on raffle botting a couple years ago. I'll do another one soon. But the issue was that they made it so that the pairs that they released online sometimes were just the leftovers that, like, they didn't have, for whatever reason, didn't sell through the Flex raffle system, whether that was shipped to me or in store. Now, you might be like, okay, well, they still dropped. Some of the times they were dropping like 50 pairs, right? Or like 150 pairs. I think like some of the times I saw those numbers. And if you are familiar with what Footsites used to be like to bot prior to this switch to the Flex raffle system, you used to be able to hit 40, 50, 100 pairs, 200 pairs pretty easily, right? They didn't even drop that amount of pairs a lot of times last year during 2022. So that was obviously a big issue. Now, another issue came along last year where, they started to drop stock on the site, but a bot came along last year that pretty much ate, I would say, 95 to 100% of the stock that they did end up releasing online, every single drop. If you are aware of this, right, in this time too, they've also gotten rid of Foot Action and East Bay. So again, not only did we lessen the amount of pairs that we're dropping, we also cut down the amount of stores from 5 to 3, right? We've still got Kids Foot Locker, and Champs. Last year, and I was a part of this madness, right? There was one bot that just, like I said, took 95% of the stock every time. It did it the second the stock dropped, and it was beyond effective. Now, I'm not going to call them out because I did use the bot. We're supposed to be able to rent it. Figured out a way to rent it. Got in contact with people there, and that allowed me to do my thing. So I'm not going to blow that spot up. But what I will say is, one, this bot does not work in the US anymore. So that's a plus, right? Because I'll get into what's going on now. And two, I've only used I probably used 30, 40 bots in the 4 or 5 years that I've been doing this. And while I've had days where I've hit 50 to 100 pairs often, there's only 2 bots that I've ran that felt like something, not on my part illegal, but something felt like it was not normal, right? Like it felt just way, way, way too easy to hit pairs. Now, the old one, if you remember, I think maybe 2019, like I'm getting old, like Jesus. I think it was 2019, could have been 2020. Peak Polaris was that bot, and it turned out that dude did do something illegal. The other one was this Footsite bot, so I'm not going to blow them up, but just know that with the issues with the Flex raffle system where they essentially pulled all the stock, and as they started to let more stock kind of trickle out as people's outrage died down over the botting issue, which just seems to come and go like waves. People get mad, they put out some propaganda saying they've dealt with it, and then people kind of take their attention elsewhere. Then the companies can get back to just selling us all their stock. But essentially, right, we now have a situation where that bot has been disabled, so it's not taking all the stock. With, again, I don't know this for a fact, but I know what it felt like using it. It's probably something sketch going on. I do not know this for a fact because I'm not a coder. I can't look at the back end of it. I have no clue what's going on the back end of these things. And they've moved stock back online. So that was a long rant on what's happened on this, but I'll get into kind of where we are now and the evidence that I have, just that, things have changed. All right, now moving on to Finishline and JD Sports. Like I mentioned, essentially just up until recently, it had been for a year or two, like you couldn't really bot Finishline and JD Sports. Like sure, like I mentioned, you could run bots on it, and you know, I get 50, 100, 150 webhook checkouts. And my success rate during that time was like 5 to 10%, if that, right? If I got 5 to 10% on a finish line drop, I was quite frankly thrilled, right? Like thrilled. That is a great win for me, right? I'm trying to hit on multiple sites, running multiple sites. That was awesome. 5 to 10%, that's the best I kind of could do. And again, I've mentioned this before, right? A big reason why that is just that I have a lot of people that I run ACO for that have hard cards. I'm not, even if I'm running 1,000 tasks, like I can do it on a men's pair, GS pair, then JD men's, JD GS, and I can only like have each address almost, because if I get up to about 100 addresses, you know, I'm only repeating addresses like once or twice. So you're not getting all these checkouts if you've got 10 profiles and you run a couple hundred, right? That's been a big reason why I feel like I do have success. Now, the thing that has changed recently that just stuck out to me, and I do not know that this will 100% continue because I didn't run for the Jordan 1 Lucky Greens, but I did run for the Jordan 3 Reimagines, and I got like 60 some webhook checkouts, right, from JD and Finishline. And you know, I'm thinking in my head, I had to run out after that day, but I'm like, all right, like, what is that, 10%? So I was hoping to get like 3 to 5 stick. I had 22 of them ship. Now, again, a good amount of those went to people that I run ACO for, but that was a pretty big drop. I need to look around and see if people have any data on whether or not that happened in the Lucky Greens. But that did happen for the Jordan 3 Reimagines. So I don't know if that's going to continue. I hope it does. If I can hit like 30 some percent, you know, during drops on finish line, like that's going to be a gold mine moving forward. We will see. I'll continue to comment on this as we move along, but that's the kind of thing that I am bringing up here, that is possible, and hopefully that continues. Now, these are data points, like I said, just anecdotal evidence for me. I've hit a solid amount on Footsites as of late, with the pandas that dropped recently, and I saw people rack up, again, hundreds of checkouts on Footsites. So if that is the case, right, those are data points that I've got. Now, some, you know, off back of the napkin logic and reasoning, I guess, on my part. But in my opinion, I believe that they may be starting to drop more stock online not because they like us and, you know, care what's going on, really. You know what they care about, sales. But I think that they're feeling this massive, you know, dip in the overall market. I've talked about this on here before. I know I haven't posted in a month or so, but we're still in the recession and probably headed for much worse. I could be wrong. I doubt it. But I think that they're really starting to feel this. I know this because all you need to do is look at the stock market, right? All companies are feeling this. And the only companies that are showing like improvements in their stock prices fired like 20% of their staff. So, you know, are they really doing better? Maybe they're on the balance sheet. But what I'm going to say is that I think they're feeling this. And at this point, they quite frankly don't care how they sell these pairs. They don't care about the people complaining about bots. They don't care about the people caring about not getting a pair when they enter. They just want to sell the pairs and get them off of their unsold inventory list and into the hands of the customers. Now, when times are good and we're in a 14-year bull market from 2007 to 2020, they can, afford to pander to these people complaining about stuff that the companies don't care about, right? The companies do not care about you getting a pair. They care about selling those pairs regardless of who the buyer is. Now, when times are good and it's easy for them to sell all of the stock, they can, like I said, pander to these people and be like, oh, we'll set up some inefficient flex raffle system that costs us a bunch of money because we're rolling in the dough. Now, I would argue that these companies aren't rolling in the dough because they've closed Foot Actions, they've closed East Bay, they're closing these other stores right in bad malls. Malls are going down all over the country. But that's why I think they're doing this. I don't think that it's random that this is happening now, right? So that's my thought on the situation. Like I said, I'll touch on a couple more things here before the end of the video, but I do think that they're starting to revert back to just we need to get these out the door. We don't care about the press. We don't care what people are complaining about bots, right? We just need to sell these pairs. That's a good way to do it. And propaganda is relatively effective, right? Look back on history, you can convince people of pretty crazy things. Nike's running a propaganda campaign right now saying that they're stopping 98% of botters. I have chosen, right, for self-preservation and the preservation of the people that code and run the bots that I use on Nike, I'm not commenting much on that site. I know that there are people out there showing live cops while they're doing it. Foot Locker, Finishline, Kith. I'm not worried about them implementing some big system that, or using their resources to find people and watch their videos and make adjustments. They don't have the resources. Nike does have the resources, but I'll leave it at this. I'm not going to talk on them too much because I don't want them, trying to find me out, but I'm very not worried about that anyway, because it's not like I use one address. I've got like 30, but regardless, right? They're not stopping 90%, 98% of the bots. That's utterly ridiculous. If you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you. Now, does it matter that that's not true? No, because the general public has no clue how this works, right? So just know that, right? These companies are saying these things to try to appease people who are complaining. Like I said, they may care about other things, but the thing that they care the most about in the top 10, numbers 1 through 9, are selling their inventory, not pleasing you. In regards to the bots that I use on these sites, personally, we'll start with Footsites, so Foot Locker, Kids Foot Locker, and Champs. Pretty much, I run Prism, Wrath, and Haya. I have other bots that have the module, but I stick with those 3 because I've had a lot of success on those lately. Hit the high double digits on the Pandas, just across those 3 bots. And then for Finishline and JD Sports, there are a lot of bots right now that do have modules that I know work well. But quite frankly, I don't run anything else because I just run an instance or 2 of Valor. Sometimes I run just 1. It's a big drop. Sometimes I run 1 instance with just Finishline, 1 instance with just JD. But regardless, I've found that I don't even need to run other bots, right? Every now and then I don't get it to work because I put a wrong link in or there was just an issue. But, 90+% of the time, Valor cooks up webhooks for me. Now, we are hoping that those webhooks, we can start converting at like a 30-some% rate. If that is the case, we're going to be able to feast. And just mentioning the proxies that I use on both of these sites, I pretty much stick to Live, Lemon, and Stella as far as my residential proxies that I use. And then if I am going to attempt to use ISPs on Footsites, right, you need to make sure that you have a subnet that is going to be unbanned on there. A large percentage of the subnets out there are banned, so, second you get them, you can run them. They're not going to work. But the 2 providers that I use the most for ISPs, again, are going to be Proxy Chimp, Porter, and Proxy Heaven. So that's what I use. All of those work very well. But, those are my go-tos with this, and that's what I use to hit pairs on there. I would highly recommend looking into all of them. I've got the information in the information section below, as they are all sponsors of mine. All in all, if any of this holds true, which I'm not going to tell you I think 100%, but I think Footsites is back online, and I think Finishline is very possibly back online for us. That would obviously be massive, right? Pretty much the end of last year, right? We were kind of stuck with, sneakers and Shopify, right? There's some obscure sites in there every now and then, but like that starts to be slim pickings, right? Like that's tough. When I initially started, right, there was Yeezy Supplies, sneakers, Footsites, Shopify, Finishline, right? Like there was just more. There was more to go for. The more targets you have, the better chance you have of hitting if you're a beginner, and the more targets you have, as somebody who's really scaled up, the more success you're going to have, right? You just have more. There's just more fish you can catch. So I will say, right, do not just because you heard this from me be like, okay, like he's 100% right. I'm going out to buy every Footsite bot there is, right? Don't do that. Just maybe rent a bot if you've got one. That you have that has a Footsite module or an FNL module that you hadn't been running just because you were aware of the issues on those sites over the past year to 2 years. I would maybe start right on releases where you definitely want to go for. I would probably start running if you can. I would still probably, as of right now, right, prioritize sneakers and Shopify, but I'm going to be running pretty heavy on Footsites, right, coming up for this May 13th with the Jordan 4 Lightnings. So just, be ready for that. I think that is the case. I hope it is the case, but that's, again, just information from me that I think is viable and hopefully is. As always, a massive shout out and thank you to my sponsors. I haven't posted in a minute, so if you need any of those codes or anything, Discord invites, you need to get on wait lists, right? I do have pretty much every resource you could need. I have that covered by some company. So again, I mention this all the time because I really have stuck to this. I think there's one company in the 2 or 3 years that I ended up working with that I didn't, really end up liking. But everything that you see down there is something I use, right? Whether that's cards, whether that's proxies, servers, accounts, right? Account generators, whatever the case may be. All of it's down there. I do stand by all these companies, and I think that they are great options as, they are what I actually run on my computer, and they're what I actually hit pairs with. And real quick, I want to give a special shout out to a new sponsor of mine, and that's going to be Edge Banking. They are a virtual credit card provider, which quite frankly are my go-to now that I use on every site that I bought sneakers on. So the big things with them, right? They are like I said, they are a virtual credit card provider that works on every site, right? There are a lot of virtual credit card providers out there. Some of them scammy, some of them don't work on every site. So you need multiples, right? You can just knock 2 birds out with 1 stone, get Edge, works on every site that you're going to need for sneaker buying. Okay. Now, another good thing, $25 a month for a ton of cards in the hundreds, right? That is a better price than you're going to get pretty much anywhere else that's a virtual credit card provider. There is a wait list. So, I'm going to have all the information up on the screen and in the information section below. So definitely get in there. You might have to wait a little bit to get full access to their product and their virtual credit cards, but they also do giveaways every weekend. So, if you really want to get in there, enter, and hopefully you can get lucky and get access to it more quickly. But they're definitely, in my opinion, the best virtual credit cards. Like I said, I'm using them now, works on every site. I would highly recommend getting in there, getting on the wait list so you can get access as quickly as possible. And just mentioning again, I really am happy to be back posting again. Like I said, I've filmed several episodes today, and I will be posting some of the live cops from the past month or 2 that I haven't put up but did film on screen. So definitely look for those. Like I said, they are old. They're not going to be new. I will have new stuff too, but there will be a good amount, like 3 or 4 live cops probably over the next couple weeks that pop up that are just, a little older, but they're still relevant to what's going on. Yikes. Those big red boots. Anyways, that is all for today's video. Per usual, if you want to get more content from me, I post pretty much daily on Instagram, Twitter. Haven't been TikToking lately, but I need to get back on that. Regardless, you can follow me on those sites and platforms where I do post more frequent content. And check back in a couple days. Monday, Tuesday, I should have another video up. And like I said, live cops should be following that. But other than that, just check back for that content. And until next time, see ya.